So, good evening, my dear friends, my dear colleagues. Good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to our universal philosophical community, the White Tower. Today's guest is Dr. Dal Monte. Good afternoon, Dr. Dal Monte.
Hello, Dimitri. Nice to see you again.
So pleased to have you here with us today to discuss your great book called The Logical Worldview. It's going to be a series of lectures with Dr. Dal Monte on his book. Today we're gonna have a talk on logic, on definition of logic. But before starting, I'd like to read a few words about Dr. Dal Monte's academic background. Dr. Dal Monte received his doctorate in philosophy from Temple University in 2021. He specializes in metaphysics with a particular focus on the issue of free will. He's also part of the Philosophy and the City movement, which applies philosophical ideas in an interdisciplinary way to urban design. His research centers on the Western philosophical tradition, particularly the ideas of Immanuel Kant, while he's also developing an interest in Eastern philosophy. He's also engaged in contemporary debates on free will, including general perspectives that view humans as mechanistic or machines, something which challenges the concept of free choice. Additionally, he explores how the concept of free will intersects with Eastern philosophical ideas, such as non-duality, which posits that individual selves are not separate, but rather one with the universe. This view can complicate traditional notions of individual free will and agency. Now, his work investigates how these perspectives impact philosophical anthropology and advocates for modifications in our understanding of human autonomy. He is a lecturer right now at Rowan University and Jefferson University. He's pursuing full-time work, and he's also active on Substack with his blog, Philosophy, Spirituality, and Culture. Dr. Dal Monte, so happy to have you here with us today.
My pleasure, Dimitri.
And we've got a unique opportunity to start our series of discussions with a great topic today concerning logic. Now, as we all know, in philosophy and everyday use, logic refers to some rules which lead us to valid inferences, so as to have some conclusions, which of course are based on true premises. But of course, it's not that easy to always drive ourselves to safe conclusions. We have got to follow some systematic way of thinking that at times avoids contradictions and fallacies. Now, as we know, the English word logic descends from the Greek word logiki, which is a feminine noun, meaning reason or reasoning. And in turn, logiki comes from the ancient Greek word logos, whose core senses also include reason, word, discourse, speech. So it's more like a science of reason we're going to be talking about today. So would you say that logic is more than common sense? And does it agree with a universal language with rules applying in any kind of circumstances? What's your general definition of logic?
Yes, I would say it's more than common sense. It's a deeper look, a deeper examination, much deeper than just the basic orientation of the average person. It's a science of the structure of thought. What is good reasoning? What is bad reasoning, to put it simply? And so the average person does have a grasp of some of these principles, but it's been developed over the centuries in a much more sophisticated way. And the average person is still prone to being driven by factors that are extraneous to logic. So we have logos, but we also have things like psychology or habit or bias that interfere. So we're trying to distill this essential deep structure of thought and validity, and we have several Greek words that I would like to explore with you. You mentioned logos. One that comes up, there's an English word, syllogism. And I'd like to explore with you the Greek roots of this word. There is a Greek root for this, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a combination of syn plus logismos.
Okay.
Something added to logic. It's a whole process of thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a syllogism. It's very interesting because a syllogism comes from Aristotle, and it's a series of steps. It's a process by which we think through. It's not just one claim. It's a
combination, rather combination.
Yes. Yeah. So if you look at the Greek origins, it's not just logic, but a process of logic, and it gets quite complex. So I would say there needs to be some sort of distillation, almost like a mathematics, that examines a basic structure. And Aristotle was, of course, the master of this with the prior analytics and the posterior analytics, where he went through various syllogisms which integrate several steps to generate a conclusion. And there are perfect syllogisms and imperfect syllogisms, meaning that some syllogisms have a kind of a complex structure that we can reduce to an obviously valid structure. We can manipulate them using various processes. Yeah, maybe that we can start. Hopefully, that's a good start, and maybe we can proceed from there.
Yeah, of course. So you mentioned something about language. Now, in our everyday language, we use modality, modal verbs, to describe a thing's relationship to reality. Now, either we say sometimes that that must be the case so as not to dishearten people around us, or even, yeah, that could also be the truth. So we use these modal verbs to make inferences, but of course, we're not 100% sure of the outcome or if our consequences align with reality. So how does logic help us to make the transition from modal relationship to valid inferences? Can you give us any examples?
Sure, excellent question. Yeah, so modality is a thing's relationship to reality. So we have various modal states. You have possibility, something is possible. This could happen. We don't know if it has happened or is actual, but it could happen. It's possible. Then we have necessity, which is something that must happen. It's a stronger commitment. And then you have impossibility. Something just simply could not happen. So we have various grades and degrees of modality that we use in everyday everyday speech. But it's very important for logic. So, for example, Einstein found that it's impossible to travel faster than the speed of light. Okay, this is something that's just naturally impossible. A pig that flies, some sort of weird hybrid animal, is it possible? Maybe there's a possible world. That's something that logicians use, a possible world. There's a world that's possible. It's not actual, but we could imagine a world where this sort of freakish thing exists. Aristotle talks about a goat stag, this weird hybrid creature. It's not real, but it's possible. There's a possible world. So we have this idea of modality. It's not describing the thing, but just what its status is. And logic is particularly sensitive to modality, because when we do logic, we're not just observing something. So when I'm not doing, there's non-discursive thinking, where I simply observe something. I say, well, the sky is blue. I'm not using logic there. I'm just observing something. I'm using my senses. I'm using my powers of perception, right? But when I use logic, I'm taking an idea or multiple ideas as in a syllogism, and I'm trying to derive a conclusion. You can generate new claims that are necessitated from a previous claim. So I just used a modal concept, necessity. Logic is sensitive to the structure of thought and what follows from what. Okay, so just a very simple example. If I take a claim, all A are B, okay, all A are B, well, I can know by logic that it is false that some A are not B. I don't need to observe this. I can simply use my power of reasoning. It's a modal structure that this claim necessitates the falsehood of this other claim. So that's an example of how modality works in logic. Now, there is a branch of logic that Aristotle also developed called modal logic. And in this form of logic, we're trying to see if modal status transfers logically. So we're wondering if necessity or possibility transfers over to the conclusion. And I think the viewers would be interested in an example of this. So there's a famous example in Aristotle. We have the idea that necessarily there will be or there will not be a sea battle tomorrow. So this is a basic law of logic that common sense would recognize, the law of the excluded middle. A statement is either true or false, not both and not neither. Okay? So necessarily there will or will not be a sea battle tomorrow.
So it's one or the other.
Yes, one or the other. All right. Now the question is, does this necessity transfer to the fact? So tomorrow there's going to be either a sea battle somewhere, or there will not be a sea battle necessarily. But was the sea battle itself that either does or does not happen, is that itself necessary or not or necessarily not? And the answer is no. The sea battle itself did not necessarily happen just because one or the other necessarily happened. So yeah, that's just an example of modal logic. And we can go deeper with that discussion, but just to
exactly, yeah. Very good examples. Very good examples. So when we reason, we presuppose modality, we presuppose modal relationships, just because we need them to rule out various possibilities and come to a conclusion about inference. Yeah.
Correct.
So now, on logical relations, again, logic underwrites various disciplines like biology, sociology, economics, since argumentation is part of everyday discipline. Now, the logic is formal and doesn't have to do with the content of each discipline. So biology and science should have a logical foundation, of course. Now, it's really hard to get a basic grasp of thought, of the argumentations used in each one of these disciplines, unless we abstract the content from sentences in these scientific fields. So only if we remove the content can we actually see the logical structure which underlies these scientific arguments. So in that sense, can we admit that logic is based on a universal principle, regardless to content? And is this principle always infallible?
So we have these structures of thought, and they should apply universally, regardless of what we're talking about. So biology, political science, various disciplines we have. We are thinking, we're reasoning, and we can abstract from the content to a certain formal structure. So we have this distinction between form and matter, and there's a material content, but there's also a formal structure. And so you have things like quantifier, all or some. So Aristotle distinguished between universal claims, and the particular claim. You have a quality. Is it affirmative or negative? You have various logical relationships, such as contradictions. You have conversion, various operations you can perform. Contraposition. It's kind of a fancy word for just moving around the parts of the proposition so that you generate an implication. And so this can be done on a purely formal level. The medievals cataloged all the valid syllogisms. They gave them these names. So there's like a Barbara would be a name, and it has like a code in it. Barbara, there's 3 A's in Barbara. And so Barbara is syllogism for AAA. That would be universal, universal, universal. All A are B. And so you generate this valid syllogism. Then you have celerant. CELARENT. There's a code there. Each vowel is AEA. So they gave these weird names. They're codes for the structure of the syllogism. It's a valid syllogism no matter what you put in, what content you put in. You could be talking about living creatures or politics. So you have this distinction between matter and form, but also this is a crucial transition from Aristotelian to modern logic. The question of are we doing logic about the so-called empty set? They're empty sets. It's something that just does not exist. And this is going to touch upon our later discussion of logic and ontology. Logic about the empty set, something that just does not exist, like a fairy or some mythical creature, the goat stag, this hybrid animal. Can we do logic about just empty sets? And for Aristotle, the answer is no. It's quite interesting. Modern logic says yes. So in modern logic, which comes about in the 19th, 20th century, there is an even increasing formalism where you don't even care whether what you're talking about is real. Whereas for Aristotle, it's mapping onto reality. It's finding the metaphysical structure of the world. So it's quite interesting. This change. So in modern logic, to sum up, increasing formalism. We can do operations about empty sets, things that are just not do not exist at all.
Yeah, there's a huge gap between modern logic and Aristotelian one.
Yes, it's quite fascinating. Yeah, we can continue in that vein as we proceed. Yeah.
Okay, so logic is not connected. What I have to bear in mind here is that logic is not connected with the content of any discipline, but with how we actually think about it. So now, moving on to the relationship between logic and language, if we dive into this relationship, what do we actually mean when we refer to logic as a mathematical language? We know, for example, that mathematics is a science on its own, a genuine science. So if logic is based on maths, does it actually mean that logic is a nobler science which takes its principles from a more basic science like maths? It reminds us of the science of music, which accepts on authority the more basic principles of arithmetic. So in that sense, does logic transcend language structures, the notion of common sense, and a reasonable approach based on habits we used to have in the past? And can it eventually pave the way toward pure thought, Kantian notion of pure thought?
Yeah, so very good question. So yeah, it's quite interesting, right? That languages have different words, of course. Languages have different grammar, but logic transcends that. So it's not as though logic breaks down in English or Greek. It's the same structures. We can recognize the validity. Regardless of the language we use, it's quite interesting. There's a universal grammar of thought, and in fact, some of these principles are so basic you really can't think unless you presuppose them. So let me just
like modality, like logic and modality.
Yes, to return to modality as we continue to deepen our understanding here.
So it's more than language. Yeah.
It transcends language. Yes, it's not embedded in language. So Heidegger said that language is the house of being. But I would see language as secondary. I think logos would be more fundamental than language. It's more fundamental. So you have laws of thought, and they're so basic that you simply cannot think. But some people do not follow them, but you simply cannot think without them. So, for instance, the law of identity: A equals A. So if you have something A, well, then it is equal to itself. So could this be denied? Yes, it could. As you see, maybe in certain political movements or speech, A does not equal A. If you think back to the novel 1984, there's an episode where this is this totalitarian regime that George Orwell imagined. The guy is being tortured, and they're saying, you must admit that something like I'm holding up 5 fingers, right? And it's these are not 5 fingers. You must deny your your basic perception of reality. You must deny it. So A does not equal A. You see 5 fingers, but it's not 5 fingers. Getting people to deny that A equals A. Why is a man a man? Well, just a fundamental fact. This is Aristotle talking, because he's a man. There's no other deeper reason. There's just, that's what he is. So we also have the law of non-contradiction. A and not A. They cannot both be true at the same time. So if you deny that, you can't even intelligibly think. You can't do the syllogism. You can't reason. So if A and not A can both be true at the same time, I'm totally disoriented. I'll say one thing, but the other thing could be true. I'm talking to Demetrios. I'm not talking to Demetrios. And the law of excluded middle. Every proposition must be either true or false, not both, or neither. So if you think that a proposition, there is a God, that could be neither true nor false. Well, that just can't be. It's like as if it just has no meaning, or it just and some of the sophists, I'm wondering if you could maybe speak a little bit about the sophist movement. They would try to use language in ways that was very disorienting, and they would deny these basic principles. Is there Greek roots of the sophistry?
Of course. They did that all the time.
Yeah, quite interesting. They would try to prove the one claim and then prove the opposite claim. It was totally just disorienting. And so, but we have to have these basic principles underlying language. Otherwise, we cannot think. To make one more point here, Aristotle provided what's called an organon. And it's a tool. It means a tool, I think. That's how I interpret it. An organon would be a tool. And it's
something like an instrument, yes.
Yeah, it's an instrument, and it's not the solution. It's not going to reveal everything. It doesn't show us reality, but it gives us a way to clarify our grasp of reality.
Yeah, something like a mediating force, let's say, that intervenes.
A mediating force. Yeah.
Very nice. So in logic, we also abstract from all empirical conditions, like Kant says. So we try to move away from our senses, our memory, imagination, our habits, our inclinations of the past, if we want to move closer to reality and the real world. Now, regarding logic and psychology, we often tend to generalize when, for instance, we judge people. And we tend to judge them based on our own intuitions and experiences, biases, and feelings. An example is that we often refer to the hardworking people in the northern countries versus the lazy people in the southern countries in Europe. So, of course, this is not true, but we would like to see how exactly does logic help us move away from these falsified statements, which, of course, do not agree with the current state of affairs, and change our way of thinking and move us from the way how we think to the way how we should think.
Yes, yeah. So psychology is descriptive. How do we think? But logic is a rule for how we should think.
Of course.
And so logic, as we've been saying, is this formal structure. It's a science of the rules of thought. In psychology, under so many different influences that are extra logical, you might say. So Kant has this comment that we have the senses, the imagination, the memory, habit, prejudice. All these things are affecting our thinking. Maybe it's a sunny day, and that makes me feel good. And so I start reasoning in a different way. I could be imagining something. I could be imagining that someone is thinking something, or they're motivated by something. I'm imagining it, but they're not really doing so. I'm just imagining it. I'm speculating. I have certain memories. Maybe I have some bad memories that are coming back as I'm going through my day. I have bad memories coming up, and this is affecting my thinking. So this can be very distorting, and it needs to be. We need to have a discipline. It's a practice and a discipline to stay focused, to reason clearly, and not be swayed by these extra logical elements. It's so easy. Plato had critiques of democracy.
Of course.
The people are swayed by what appears to be wise, but is really not wise. He talks about the ship of the state. It's like as if there were a ship, and the people on the ship, they don't pick the captain who really knows what he's doing, who knows how to navigate the ship. They pick the person who seems to be stronger. They're swayed more by the way they're made to feel.
Yeah.
So, there's a basic rule here. What is it that makes a proposition true? And this goes back to Aristotle. To say of what is that it is true. So if something is, and you say that it is, then that's true. And so this is the correspondence principle, the correspondence theory of truth. Now, in my book, I do go into some debates about what is truth. But Aristotle has this idea: truth is correspondence of a proposition and a reality. So what does it make something true? It's the reality. Now, sometimes, though, it's as if our feeling or our simple belief makes something true. So if I feel very strongly about something, that can make it seem as though something is true. Or someone says something is true. They have authority, and that seems to make it true. This is all psychology. It's all psychology because it's allowing external factors to influence the way we think. What makes something true is the reality. So we're always trying to go back to reality. I think logos and reality are connected.
Of course.
We're trying we're trying to align our mind to the structure of reality. So hopefully that made things a little bit clearer.
Exactly. And logos has nothing to do with the psychological tendencies, which of course do not conform to any standards of logic. And of course the sophists were those who used to appeal to our senses all the time. And that's why they differ a lot from the wise people who would like to bring reality to the masses But of course, that was not that easy due to the dictatorship of the majority, of course. And that's
Yes.
also another issue. We would like to discuss it at a later stage. So,
if I make one more point,
yes,
Dimitri.
of course.
Your comment about the stereotype, the idea that people in the northern are hardworking, people in the south are more lazy. That in Europe, of course, that's something that is said. Or in my country, it's we have different stereotypes too about various people, and I think what's happening here is we have this law of identity, A equals A, and so sometimes though we become lazy with it. So if we have identity, we have water equals water. So this is a basis for induction. We can do inductive reasoning where we say, okay, water equals water. So when I encounter water again, I can make it equivalent to previous examples of water. So I know what I'm getting into. So water equals water. So when I have water again, I know this is going to satisfy my thirst. I know what water is based upon my previous experiences. Now, sometimes we get lazy where what's happening there, I think, is we're saying, okay, people in the north equal people in the north. And we're lumping them together, but there's many variations. So we could become lazy and we just lump too many things together in this law of identity. Reduce complexity.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, coming to the relationship between logic and ontology now, we know that ontology is the study of what there is. So people can very well ask, is there a God? Or do rabbits exist as universals, as a class? Or they may also ask, is reality based on the mind or the matter? In other words, is it actually based on idealism or materialism? So our question is, how can we actually connect logic to ontology? And
this is
and are there any philosophers' ideas on that issue, ideas which would make it easier for us to understand this relationship between logic and ontology?
Sure.
Is that a trick?
Yeah, this is actually a very deep issue, and it goes back to the debate between Aristotle and modern logic, which, as I said, has to do with, is logic about reality, or is it simply like a kind of a game where we can just make inferences about nothing? So you could say that logic does not tell you what is. This would be very modern. Logic simply gives you rules of inference, and you could make inferences about anything, about fictional entities like a fairy or a flying pig. So it would have nothing to do with ontology. It doesn't tell you what is the case. It's quite interesting, though, to study Aristotle for maybe a different look here, because for Aristotle, what's very important are the categories, and there's a Greek word there, categoria, if I'm not mistaken.
Categoria, yes, correct.
Yeah, and so we're looking at different ways we can describe reality. And so there's substances, and this would be ousia. There's a fundamental level, And then there's various attributes of the substance, which would be quantity, quality, relation. So you're building a map of reality. And you're not just making these claims in a vacuum. You're trying to map your thinking onto the metaphysical structure of the world. And so you have these basic metaphysical features of reality, and you're looking for definitions. You're trying to find, and I encountered this Greek phrase, toti en. Am I saying that right? Something like what the thing is, toti en?
Titon.
Okay. Just the basic identity of a thing, or the essence.
Titon. Πολύ ωραία. Very nice.
Okay. Yeah. So you have an essence of a thing, and so for Aristotle, it's quite interesting. He uses a word here. He's talking about S. So in logic, we use S and P, right? We'll say like S is P. It's this artificial language. We're just talking about the logical relationship, subject and predicate. S is P. Well, Aristotle does not use the word is. We would call the is a copula. It's a Latin S subject is copula connecting P. Now Heidegger is going to say the is, what is being? What does that mean? That Western metaphysics forgets being. What is the is? Now Aristotle does not simply say S is P. He uses something more like P belongs to S. The word is categorizai.
Το κατηγόρημα. Πολύ ωραία.
Yeah,
Very nice.
it's a stronger sense. It's not just S is P, it's a sense of belonging. It's a part of the deep nature of a thing. So
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're looking for a deep nature of a thing. So here's a great example. So in modern logic, I could say all S are P, meaning that everyone in a certain family is wearing a red hat. Perhaps there's some event, and they're all wearing a red hat for some reason. But this would not be part of the essence of the people, right? A red hat would be something very arbitrary and contingent. It would not be their essence. The red hat would not really belong to them. So in modern logic, you could not make that distinction. You just have all S are P. All S are wearing a red hat. All birds have feathers. It's a different relationship because having feathers is part of the deep nature of being a bird. It's almost like, can you be a bird and not have feathers? There's something deeper there than just wearing a red hat. And so Aristotle's capturing this deep structure. The property belongs to the subject.
Subject.
Yeah. And moreover, we want to make sure we're talking about substance. We can make claims about like a quality. So like I said, like anger. I can talk about anger. Anger is destructive. I can make that claim. But I'm not at the deep level of reality because I'm talking about what's a quality. Anger is not something that exists by itself. Anger is a quality of something else. So if I'm talking about qualities, I have to be careful because I'm not at a deep level of reality. And I want to try to align myself with the deepest level of reality, which is ousia. And then I'm trying to also, I'm sorry?
No, the ousia in Greek, yeah. Go on, please.
Ousia, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then and then I'm trying to align the secondary substance with the primary substance. So I'm trying to put things in their proper classes. So there's an individual man, Socrates, but then there's man as a general class. And so that also has a kind of existence for the class in which the individual participates, kind of like a Platonic relationship there. And so to go back to the original topic, logic and ontology, I feel more sympathetic to Aristotle, that logic is supposed to ground us in ontology. You could just treat it as a game. It's just a game is just the self-contained set of rules. Like you could think about chess and just it has nothing to do with reality. It's just a made-up configuration you could with various moves you can make in the game, but it's not about the real world. But I think logic should be about finding definitions of real things. What is their essence? What is the deep structure of reality? I think if you look at the word logos, it's both a logical and a metaphysical concept. Maybe in the thinking of Heraclitus, it's both logical and ontological.
Exactly. It has exactly these notions, it combines these notions together, because Heraclitus also used to refer to logos metaphorically through thunderbolts of being, through the phrases ever-living fire, thunderbolt as an organic element. So all of these phrases are used both metaphorically and ontologically, of course.
Yeah. Quite interesting, yeah.
And now coming to the last part of today's session, thinking for ourselves. When we think on our own, we tend to follow our instinct when it comes to grammar rules, behavioral tendencies, ways of speech, and we don't care that much to grasp the underlying principles and justificatory basis. So more often than not, we start doubting about an argumentation's logical consequences when we listen to other people talking, deploying their thoughts. So we're not quite sure about the outcome again. Now, in what ways can logic drive us to acceptable conclusions based on true premises?
Well, so again, I would say that be careful because logic is not complete, right? Logic was not going to complete our job because logic would not be able to determine the truth of the premises. We need to have observation. We need to do empirical work to find out whether a claim is true. Now, logic can reason from a premise, but we need to have also non-discursive elements in our thinking. So logic is necessary, but not a sufficient condition for truth. So logic won't tell me that I'm talking to Dimitri right now. That's my perception. I'm experiencing that. So yeah, so logic is an organon. Now, as far as thinking for ourselves, this is part of maturation, and this is why I enjoy working with college students. We as humans, we imitate people around us, but we shouldn't stop there. Kant says that we should not derive morality from life. And by that he means we should not understand morality from just observing people. Because people sometimes have a false view of morality. They're not good examples of morality. We have to look deeper. And also, we do not derive logic from life. We don't just imitate people around us. We have to begin this journey where we examine our beliefs through logic. And I mentioned here someone in a cult. This is a very sad situation, but people will be trapped in a cult. It could be through fear. It's all psychology. It's all I'm afraid to leave. I feel vulnerable. I feel a sense of belonging in this group. And you can be trapped by these forces that are not logical. And so there's a process of deprogramming that has to happen for these people. So thinking for ourselves, it sounds like a cliche. And it is, unfortunately, but there's a very substantive meaning to it. Are we simply imitating others? Or are we examining the roots of our thinking?
Do you have this feeling that there are these kinds of groups in many other sectors, like the cults you've been talking about, where people are afraid to tell their own opinions, to speak up, because they don't want to ruin their relationships with others, or they don't want to mess things up. And instead of discriminating truth from lies, they hide the reality in front of their peers just because they want to be likable.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you put it very well, that the influence of psychology.
There's great pressure on the majority. I mean, there's huge pressure, I mean, psychological one. And how can we just handle this issue? I mean, can logic help us toward that direction?
Yes, I like I said before, I see this as a practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a study. It's a way of life and a practice.
Of course.
And it's very easy to have a herd mentality, and people they will suppress their logic to fit in, to feel accepted, because they're afraid there's some threat. This has happened throughout history, where people are motivated by fear. They get carried away. So this is a discipline, and actually Aristotle talks about intellectual virtues. There are virtues of the intellect, not just of the character, of the will. We need to cultivate these attributes of the intellect, so we do not fall prey to this sort of programming. We may not even be aware of it. That we're afraid to explore certain topics. We're afraid to raise certain questions because of group dynamics. We need to cultivate a habit of logic. It's a practice and key to liberation.
Of course. And Mostly on a personal level, I would say. It's not. It's a personal matter, more or less.
Yeah. It's a personal discipline. Yeah.
Yeah. Only then can you spread the message to the group. Only if you delve into yourself and discover your hidden capabilities, only then can you open up to the real world and speak up.
Yeah. It's very much a process of a conversion. The allegory of the cave is a beautiful illustration of this, where we start in the cave, and the people in the cave want to keep you there because they don't want to be challenged. They want to preserve the idea. This is reality. The shadows we're seeing that's the reality.
You analyze these idols of the cave in your 4th chapter, which are even worse from the idols of the tribe.
Yeah, that's a very good chapter. Yes, the many idols. Yeah.
Chapter number 4 is my favorite one.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
very good. Yeah.
We will have the time to analyze it in our forthcoming sessions.
For sure.
So we came to an end. Today we had the great opportunity to discuss with Dr. Dal Monte the definition of logic, modality, the logical relations, the relationship between logic and language, psychology, ontology, and our own way of thinking. So it's always this personal struggle to not to jump directly to conclusions, but to discover the truth, starting from true premises, which are going to lead us to the reality, to the state of affairs, as you write in your books. And you keep repeating this, which is very, very crucial to shape one's understanding and way of thinking, of course. So it's a long process, but once an individual starts thinking that way, eventually he's going to become familiar with this new and logical way of thinking.
Yes, exactly. The state of affairs would be just the reality, and a proposition is made true by the reality. But it's so many ways people will believe something to be true based upon other things.
Of course. And next time we will discuss the debates, beginning with the debates, the Cartesian doubt, transhumanism, and the evolution and the materialist worldview.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's a very good section, I think. Yeah.
Of course. So once again, thank you very much. This is Dr. Dal Monte's book. We're discussing the logical worldview, skills to distinguish fact from fiction in the contemporary information war. Once again, thank you very much for being with us today. Hope to see you next time. So we'll be also glad to discuss more interesting issues.
Excellent, Dimitri. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, Professor. Have a good evening.
You too.